Underpinning a lot of the discussions that you've heard today, certainly, is the cloud. So we're going to really dig into cloud security. Little context off the top: as federal agencies continue to expand their cloud infrastructure, the challenges are clear. How do you manage and secure increasingly complex environments without sacrificing, you've heard it time and time again today, operational efficiency? So we've got a couple of great experts up here to unpack all of the key issues. To the far end, Captain Daniel Rogers. He is Chief Digital and Artificial Intelligence Officer, U.S. Coast Guard. Captain Rogers, welcome, sir.
Good to be here.
Right next to me, Shailesh Athalye. He is Senior VP of Product Management at Qualys. Sir, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Josh.
So, Captain, you have a storied background. You ran base New Orleans for a number of years. You're known in the DoD IT community as a bit of a Mr. Fix-It, an operational efficiency whiz. Give our audience, for their benefit, just a little bit of your background, sir.
Just a combination of, so I have a doctorate in strategy and leadership, and I'm a licensed industrial engineer. So that combination makes me a little less of a typical IT or cyber person and more of a kind of organizational design, socio-technical person. So that's mostly what I can talk about is how do you combine the social with the technical to actually produce transformational change?
Product management could mean a number of different things. So at Qualys, how does product management apply to cloud or cloud computing?
Yeah, it's simple. Like Sumedh, who's our boss, was here. I just do what he asked me to do. That's one simple thing to do. But obviously, it means number of things, right? Obviously, we take super pride in actually working with our customers in commercial and government areas, like who are driving their digital transformation from on-premise infrastructure to cloud and containerized infrastructure. At the end of the day, we firmly believe that customers' risk management mechanics remain the same. You got to know your assets, you got to manage their risk, and you need to take care of in terms of detecting and fixing it. So we make sure that the products are aligning with these customers' new age use cases, and we are doing everything possible for make them successful with it.
All right. Well, now that introductions are out of the way, Captain, if you'll humor me, I'm going to use a phrase that you brought up when we met late last week as a bit of a vehicle for this discussion. And that phrase is virtuous cycle, something culturally that you really lean into. You're leaning into it right now at the Coast Guard. Tell us what that means to you.
So the gist of it is, so I had my predecessor in this job, in this role, mostly ran an incubator. So what are the components that are necessary to actually get after data and artificial intelligence in an environment that is, as you described, on-prem, multi-cloud, all domain? What do you do? I mean, the traditional process is you fix a couple things. You narrow your overall scope. You find a thing to use as an overall vehicle to show the value of what you're producing. And then you leverage that to garner executive interest. So my approach is a little bit different. I was brought in to basically, if you think in venture capital terms, if he ran an incubator, I was there to turn it into an actual business, in preparation for sale. Except that we're not selling it outside, we're selling it inside. So how do we do that? What are the sinkers that you drop? Or maybe the better way to say it, since I came from New Orleans, is what piles do we have to drive before we can lay the foundation? And the best example I can give there of what piles we drove is, okay, first we went about setting up an overall data fabric with a whole series of components where I can do systems ingestion or data ingestion from systems, regardless of the overall environment. I can do metadata management inside that overall data fabric. I can deploy data out of it, a whole series of visualization tools, basically a full environment by which data people can do the work that they do. Because that's the big thing is if you're not a data person, I'll just give you the overall Coast Guard's perspective on me, is they just think that I'm a systems guy. until you talk to systems people, in which case I'm not a systems guy. So it's a really interesting scenario. So the business lines are these virtuous cycles that he talked about. So 3 main business lines that we got into. The first one is a deployment of data teams across the Coast Guard. And so that's domain by domain. So think logistics, finance, intel, cyber. So we need to be able to do a full domain approach to the way that we manage data. And the best metaphor on this one is so think of swarming drones, right? Before we can actually, so first we got to have the function of a drone. What's the overall characteristics by which the drone operates? All that stuff. So all that had to be done first. So what are the processes that we use as we ingest data? What do we do with data when it's in the environment? What are the metadata aspects of how we have to make sure that it's done? How do we ensure that we can deploy? All of those things have to be figured out. So then I can launch one drone, right? So I pilot an overall data team, and we did that ourselves. And we did that in the HR domain. And we said, okay, let's see what kinds of things that we can do. That lets us now test our procedures, test our environment, find out the vulnerabilities, set that overall up. Then we can move from testing it or piloting it to the guinea pig phase. So then we went to, in our case, 5P, which is our prevention shop, mariners' credentials, maritime safety, like that kind of group. They then decided, okay, we're willing to join you in this. And so now think of it as 2 drones. And so what we're ultimately trying to do is if everybody's using the same procedures, it all becomes interoperable. And then I can start swarming drones. So that's what the all domain thing looks like. So that's the first one. And the virtuous cycle there is each of those domains then starts benefiting the others. And then my role at the enterprise level is to look across the domains and deploy those things that everybody could benefit from. So then you're democratizing the overall data for use. And so that's the goal. But that's just virtuous cycle number 1, is getting after each one of these domains. That then creates the foundation by which, and I keep telling vendors this, like, you want me to do this, because this then creates belly buttons inside the Coast Guard, because I can't tell you how many stories I hear from folks that are like, I'm playing telephone every time I try to come talk to the Coast Guard, because I don't know who to talk to. So if I could talk to the data people, they don't have access to the resources of the domain. I talk to the executives, they love pretty maps with data shown, but have no idea what the backbone and infrastructure looks like to create that visualization. I'm doing a lot of talking, but I'll go real quick on the second too. So that's the first overall business line, is roll out a data teams in each one of the domains. Number 2 is go after the systems that can be replaced with data products, which is actually one of the best things that we can do from a cyber perspective, because it decreases our overall vulnerabilities enterprise-wide. So if I can start turning off systems by producing data products instead, that's what data transformation is ultimately all about. So I can get rid of these antiquated, old, bad infrastructure, bad backbone, super cyber vulnerable, we can just turn it off. I'll give you one quick example. Our housing management inventory system is really just a database with reports that can be done in data. I don't need a system. I don't need to call it a system. I just need to have the data and be able to do reports. And the third one is AI. And I can leverage AI. I'm creating a marketplace inside my data fabric such that the data scientists, when they're trying to do this work, now have access to all the tools that they need to start really capitalizing on what's out there. So sorry for the long answer.
No problem. Shailesh, I'm going to ask you a bit of a long-winded question here, but I promise at the end of it, there is a question.
Okay.
One of the most impactful moments of today's program to me was when your president and CEO, Sumedh, looked to this room of hundreds of professionals and asked them to raise their hand if they had a full operating picture of their IT environments. And there was maybe one in the room.
I did take somebody's picture who actually raised their hand. Yes.
I kind of wonder if it was a little bit of a gag, but like nobody else, and in that complex cloud environment, in order to execute or be self-actualized on the virtuous cycle that the captain just outlined there, you have to have visibility. When you're talking with those organizations all across government, what's gumming up the works there? What are the sticking points to gaining that full operational visibility?
Yeah, great question. So it's interesting you're saying that. So we started this activity for our customers and our partners, right? Like getting the hacker's eye view without needing to install anything. like how your hackers or attackers are looking into your environment externally in. And we've been talking about these reports, and if you like Bill would provide your report, but I was talking with one particular agency. They were going through their report like, yeah, I have this issue. And the person was like, wait a minute, are we really in Google Cloud Platform? I said, yeah. That's the number one part, right? The fragmented visibility comes in cloud and container, where there's so much of power with your developer and CTO teams. If somebody is going in and spinning up resources, spinning up environment, and launching the product or the application. And security teams do not know about that necessarily. So that's the number one challenge, right? Second is, since morning, we've been talking about whether it's FedRAMP compliance, whether it is compliance to your executive orders, assessing your statistics, vulnerabilities, what Captain talked about. At the end of the day, it looks like you need to do the same for your cloud environment, your containerized environment. But the challenge becomes your traditional mechanisms of scanning them with network scanner with your agents are not going to work because your environment is now ephemeral in nature. By the time the agent gets the data, that particular image is gone. So you need now for both of those cloud native mechanisms to bring in the data. What are those? Quickly just have the API-based mechanism to bring in data. Get your snapshots done, what Captain was talking about. Get your snapshots done so you don't need to keep on assessing them with your scanner. So those are two mechanisms we are definitely seeing to get better visibility in cloud environment. And then the third piece, what we are definitely seeing is the remediation part, where traditionally, the Microsoft Patch Tuesday, Red Hat patches come in. You can go ahead and patch them. Some of the times you cannot patch them. In cloud, many a times you need to hydrate your images, right? Like you cannot really take a patch. In that case, it's very interesting what Captain talked about. We see generally, and we talk a lot about in cybersecurity, the burnout, everybody's working more than 12 hours a day. And if I give you a stat, the stat suggests that 33% of the technologies what we are running, whether in cloud or on-premise and applications, they don't even matter for your business. They are actually just running it. You're doing its vulnerability assessment. Somebody's doing patching for it, and they don't even matter. Example, right? Adobe Flash running on server. Or for example, some sort of a package, open source package, your admin deployed on your cloud workload. You're doing its assessment, somebody's doing its patching. It's not even needed. To his point, you might as well actually see those combination and remove those to reduce your attack surface. That's the other thing, what we are definitely seeing. How can we actually running thin and not really actually carrying all of these packages, which I don't even need.
Captain, it reminds me of something that you said, one question that you ask, what do we lose if we turn this off? Like, what does that mean to you? What are you hoping to elicit at the end of the day?
Well, I'll give you a quick example. So we run something we call Coast Guard Business Intelligence on Cognos. And one of the difficulties is, it's way out of compliance from an overall cyber perspective. So the ATO was at risk, and then we said, we're going to turn this thing off. We got a 12-month abeyance overall, but that thing's turning off on December 1st of this year. There's less than 50% this thing should even stay on, let alone the executive overall decision to turn it off, which, if you left it to me, I'd turn it off sooner rather than later. But here's the beauty of turning systems off is, so we're going, thankfully we have the year, so we're going through a whole restructuring, recreation of business intelligence inside the Coast Guard, but we're doing it inside the data fabric that I described. So the way it works for us, and this is the reason, we're letting the domains stay in charge. So I am not actually dictating to the organization what things they are building and what it looks like. I'm providing, the systems folks are providing me the technology, we're providing the data teams procedures, and then combining those things, now the domains can prioritize that overall work. So if I turn it off, or when is probably the better way to say it, that creates the organizational pressure that if you have not recreated the things that the organization is using, that will then incentivize the recreation of those overall tools. Because here's the reality, at least from a data perspective, it's crap data to start with. It's just that it's the best we have. But that's problematic when you really think about it. Like, why would I want even just halfway decent data if I can't actually validate what it is? Which is what the data environment's all about. It's about pulling in the raw data, validating it, curating it, and then having one source of truth. And back to my virtuous cycle. When I have that, I can then look across the system suite and find all that irrelevant or inaccurate data. I'll give you one quick example. Addresses we run in our PeopleSoft environment, and the address data inside PeopleSoft's terrible. So we could do the standard military approach, and we could say, hey, everybody, make sure you update your addresses and send message traffic, and we could get it up to date for about as long as Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. And then on the back side of that, we have to do it all over again because it's never going to be accurate. So why not have one source for addresses? And now here's something that's interesting. We all wear ID cards. Or have ID cards. That's how we access our system, everything else. Those ID cards are running DEERs. So where do you think our most accurate data or address information is? It's in DEERs. So why am I holding address information inside direct access PeopleSoft tools? So back to the whole turn it off or use it as an ingest. And then I have one gold standard of data that I'm using for everything. And we ingest that into each system that actually requires it. That's the overall goal.
Shailesh, let's shift gears slightly. Zero trust. Set the table for our audience. State of the landscape right now and some of your key focal areas at Qualys relative to zero trust, sir.
Yeah, great question, Josh. Cause somehow this is our session. We are right between you and the happy hour. Could I just crack like one dad joke maybe? Like, why did the cloud security guy break up relationship with the firewalls?
I give up.
Because he said that our relationship can't be based on the assumptions. Well, it's the same thing, right? Like what today is happening is your traditional, okay, thank you. Now some of the details.
It took a minute. They got
it was a smart joke.
This is why my daughter fired me. Yeah. So, but the same philosophy, right? Like, is true in cloud, because obviously your traditional tools like firewalls, your network detection and response are not working because they're predominantly based on the assumptions of traffic, right? Like there's something coming in, malicious, suspicious in traffic. Whereas now we want to know that what's actually inside on your workload on the resource. Is there something misconfigured? Is there something which is coming in from outside in? Is it actually applicable to something which is running in my environment as a package? So that's now additional to what you're doing with your traditional tools. Second really important part, right? Your traditional EDRs are not working in that sense to form your zero trust strategy in olden terms, what you are doing with your EPP, the natural way of prevention based on rules. Because it is based on agents. And how do you install the agent if you don't know where your workloads are? And then resources or the containers won't hold any agent. So now you need, again, a cloud native mechanism to actually parse what is going in, what is coming out, and if it is suspicious behavior of some nature, so that you can actually form the zero trust strategy. That's the second part, what we are definitely seeing in a cloud native manner. And the third aspect, which is really interesting, we have obviously the executive order, and then CISA also have the maturity model. Interestingly, they're talking about the zero trust strategy either could be based on network. Network's gone, right? Your perimeter is gone in cloud. Second is, could it be based on endpoint, where there is no endpoint, there is workloads which are ephemeral in nature. Yes, the identity base could work. The data relevant, yes, the data could work. But to be honest, what we are definitely seeing from our threat research side, your attackers are not after just your data in your cloud. Your attackers are after your compute, your data storage, so that they can use it, use your cost, save theirs, and launch attacks from there. So that zero trust strategy is also not necessarily based on data. So it needs to be again based on the risk-based approach to your zero trust. What am I running? Do I really need it? What's the context? Is it actually a vulnerability misconfiguration? Is it a part of CISA-KEV? Then is it actually trending in dark web? Did I actually get some indicators like from either like my friendly states, the NATOs, etc.? Like, is it actually exploited out there in the wild? And then is it really running? So we got to use a zero trust approach by using the risk-based mechanism, not just the traditional mechanism, which is based on the endpoint or the network-based zero trust.
Captain, I was watching you out of the corner of my eye there during that response. First off, you're a great active listener. Secondly, like, what stood out there to you? Is there something you'd like to add on relative to zero trust, something you'd like to foot stomp?
Yeah, so I was thinking about, there were two pieces on what you described, because I was thinking about the risk operations from the earlier presentation. And what struck me on discussing risk operations is the underlying questions that were built into it, right? He talked about having 3 different work groups and then really not sharing the data between those work groups to really determine what risk approach we should take. That's the parallel on what we're doing with these data teams, is trying to get the executives the actual access to people that know what they're talking about. Because that's mostly what I was thinking while you were talking is, I'm glad there's people that know what he's talking about. And I would love to get more people that know what he's talking about in the right positions. So that's what this is all about. So on the one side, I want the executives to have the resources. And part of why we're doing it the way that we are in this socio-technical approach is, I'll just give you some numbers. I got about 199 ORDA, so Ops Research and Data Analytics folks all around the Coast Guard, which is an infinitesimal number when you consider the size of our organization. But we got 199. We got about 60 of them that are actually in billets where I use that expertise. So if I can create these data teams, what will happen is I will suck up all that expertise into the right location, and I will merge the experts with the need, right? So those are the two thoughts I was having as you were speaking. Was one, wow, we need to know what we don't know, like in the sense of, and you said it in an earlier overall response, I didn't even know we were in that cloud environment. So how do you have that available to the decision makers at the same time that you actually draw the right personnel to those decision makers to inform what exactly they're doing?
You used the word a couple of times, containerization, earlier. And containerization, DevSecOps, and I know I'm simplifying, but you can jump in, correct me if necessary here, lend a lot of agility to an organization long term. If you want to go in, help an organization, do containerization, do DevSecOps, how do you do it in a way that doesn't slow down operations overall?
Yeah, a great question. So obviously that there would be technical answers, but we got to really step back a bit, right? Like why at first place your agency decided to use cloud or containerized environment is for the efficiency, is for the quickness, the fast tracking of the delivery of certain projects. Now, if you go in a traditional manner, like, hey, these are the list of vulnerabilities I want you to fix. This is now going to go against not just that IT person, but the overall strategy your agency has put forward. So there are a couple of things what we absolutely do recommend a lot of customers to do is to bring in your assessment in that DevOps pipeline. How do you do that? Is essentially they could be using either Jenkins plugin, they could be using Azure DevOps, whatever they are using. If you actually bring in that assessment right in their tooling, there's 100% chance that they would look at it and will try and fix it. I'll tell you from the developer perspective, from olden days, they put a lot of pride in what they put it out there. If you show that your vulnerability is the reason why certain things are happening and which could result into ransomware attack right in their tool at that time, there's a chance they will fix it rather than it is coming in later on from runtime. So that's the first part, to provide that right in their tooling. Second part is similarly in cloud environment. They're all these resources, they're actually going in and getting deployed through something called as, like you all know, the infrastructure as code, right? Or cloud formation templates, etc. If you actually bring in your DISA stake assessments of these templates right there, there's a good chance that your developer will fix the root cause of all of your issues, which is right in their ISCs or templates, so that you do not necessarily have to keep on doing it at runtime and then tell them the same things what they need to fix on number of hundreds of resources, etc. So those are the two quick wins for sure, like we are definitely seeing, which have been working.
So if I may, so the one thing that's interesting on everything that he described, so here's the increased difficulty in a maritime service. I love it. But what if you're not connected all the time?
Yes.
Because that's what we live with.
Yep.
And so we have some technology by which we can, download it through some other things, right? And then we queue it up. But when we're pulled up to the pier, that actually works better. So it's the complexity associated with some of this stuff for an ongoing cybersecurity is really kind of fascinating. Again, when you think remote, isolated things that while we can connect them, we're limited in the pipeline associated with how much we can move between those various entities. But anyway.
Artificial intelligence is not just a theme here today. I mean, it's probably on stage at pretty much every public sector-oriented conference in the market over the past several years. I'm going to scope down the AI question a bit to cyber threat detection, cyber threat response. We've talked about it several times on stage today. Shailesh, have there been any discussions internally to Qualys, or maybe ones that you're having with customers, about the right balance between what's automated and what requires a human? Or is that an evolutionary question? The human in the loop question. Captain, I'd welcome you to weigh in after.
Yeah, it's a great question. Again, philosophically, I feel the AI and the human part, which coincide, is the humans still want to make the decisions. The operational part could be leveraged by either you asking the question through Gen AIs or the mesh of agents, which is the agentic AI. What we definitely are hearing from number of customers, the first step what they're looking at doing is to not ruffle a lot of feathers. They want to leverage it for better prioritization. So even in cloud form, how you can make friends so that your IT teams are still taking you out for Friday evening beer is not necessarily giving them a plan to fix it, but actually a plan to prioritize. Hey, Mr. Developer, we actually found these thousands of vulnerabilities in your environment and these thousands of DISA stake. But look, I'm just going to give you these 5% of those, what we need to fix, which are actually mapped to threat indicators and the running processes. If we could actually automate some of these processes, I think that's the first use case what we are definitely seeing where the agentic AI or the agents could be leveraged is better prioritization. And look, they will learn, right? Okay, if I don't want to keep on fixing the things which I'm not necessarily using, in that case, then I would have another condition for that agentic AI to go ahead and actually uninstall or remove it, rather than keeping on patching it. So that's actually the maturity, that's how it would evolve. But the prioritization is definitely what we are seeing, where it could be leveraged right off the bat with both teams working together, rather than thinking that somebody's actually coming in my area to fix things. I heard it from one of the IT person, hey, how do you like it? I'll come in and actually run your GRC jobs. Then we will see how the risk looks like. Right? So it's sort of, you also need to see that when you are driving the agentic AIs towards fixing things, you got to make the IT team in confidence. So that's why the prioritization is definitely a good balance, what we are seeing from customers.
So what makes the best metaphor I've ever heard for AI is like iRobot and like they're going to take over our jobs and artificial intelligence is going to again narrow the scope. Like it's just the wrong overall way to see it. So the best metaphor I've heard is AI is more like a service animal. So, and I think it is the best way to understand it but this goes to okay, so what's the relationship between the two is one, do you know what that service animal's trained to do? So, I mean, so dog handler is what you need. So, I mean, this goes back to why I'm starting with data teams and then layering on top of it is I don't want folks that don't know what they're doing handling that dog. Because, I mean, think about that. So that's a terrible idea. You're just going to get bit. Or there's a lot of other bad things. The other piece is a drug dog is not I don't know, name another kind of dog. Like a assist dog, right? Dog, yeah. Like those are not the same kinds of service animals. So knowing what exactly the AI tools can do, and the great example here is like just get on an open AI website and go through the number of models that are just openly available. And then tell me whether or not you know how to use those things. Because that's the biggest gap that I see is AI sounds great, but it's for a specific purpose. And then agentic is just non-deterministic workflows with tools, right? So that's easy. So I just have lots of things that I, as the human, am choosing from. So I have a menu of options. But if I don't understand one of them, how am I going to understand? I mean, it's like reading a Chinese menu. I don't speak Chinese. So I'm going to have to ask, like, what is this? And how does this work? And how does this relate to this? Like, you got to have that overall level of understanding. And the last piece I'll add is, and it's always a pull proposition. So you never should be going saying, hey, I have this AI tool, what can I use it for? It's what am I seeking to accomplish and what tooling is necessary to accomplish that overall outcome. It's the same way we go after data. Like I don't want to start with data, throw it in a lake and go fishing. That'll never work. What you got to do is, what am I trying to accomplish? And then what are the data sources by which I could actually find the kinds of things that might help me answer the mail?
It's a great place to leave it. You know, one of my great mentors said, always keep them wanting more. We got the happy hour coming up next. So, gentlemen, I want to give you a big round of applause and thank you, Captain Daniel Rogers, Chief Data and AI Officer, U.S. Coast Guard, Shailesh Athalye, Senior VP Product Management over at Qualys.